What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Okay, today's video is going to be great. We are going over a recent interview that Dr. Garry Nolan did because he said some things you're going to want to hear.
If you talk to people within what is the so-called legacy program, the people who claim to be directly working on the craft, and I have spoken to them personally.
Vetters, please hit the like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I need your help. So let's jump into this video. This is of Dr. Garry Nolan, again, in a recent interview, and he's going to talk about a couple of different things. Here's the first part.
If you talk to people within what is the so-called legacy program, the people who claim to be directly working on the craft, and I have spoken to them personally, they say, oh yeah, we know China and Russia have their own programs. The United States has many agreements with what are first called the Five Eyes nations. Those are the English-speaking nations: Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. Those are the first level agreements. But then there are agreements with France and others.
So he's saying he knows people in the legacy UFO program who have put their hands on these craft. Who are these people? I want to know, right? Are these public people? Are these people that we know? Or are they, he's just meeting with people behind the scenes? Like, are they still in the program? You know, like, it's very interesting, right? And when he says craft, like, what craft? What? Describe. What have they put their hands on? And what does that mean, put your hands on? Right? Like, literally just touched it or have done work on it. You know what I mean? Like, people often say that we want people who put their hands on craft. I mean, I've said it myself, but what do I really mean by that? Right? Would you put your hand on a craft? Maybe not. Like, I guess it just means interacted with the craft. Actually touched it would be nice, but I can understand why there might be reasons you can't actually touch the craft. But definitely have seen it in person, maybe been inside, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could go to an old car show, a vintage car show, and see a bunch of cars, never touch them, never get inside of them, but you know what I mean? You know they exist. So I guess even that would work. But what does he mean by touched? And again, do we know these people? And, how does he know them? How does he know these legacy program people? All right, now let's jump to the second part of this interview. That is very interesting because he's going to talk about the Varginha case in Brazil from the late 90s that James Fox covered. And I've got some interesting details about that.
And it's also now very well understood that the United States has agreements where if something does come down, they then have permission to go in and retrieve it. There was an event, for instance, in Brazil that was recently put forward in a movie by James Fox, the Varginha incident, which it's said, claimed, chronicled and documented that the United States sent a retrieval team to basically retrieve it from Brazil, not steal it from Brazil, to, under agreement, retrieve it and bring it back.
And of course, he talks about the Varginha case in Brazil in the late 90s. And there's been some updates there from James Fox because he put out this movie, Moment of Contact, that Garry Nolan spoke about. But then he also is putting out a sequel to it, or a director's cut, as James Fox is calling it. So I've got some more details on that. But before we get to that, let's talk about this incident in Brazil where the Americans allegedly got this craft, right? Is this a pure example of what Garry's talking about, that the Americans go across the world and intercept these craft and bring them back? Like, it's all centralized in America, that the governments allow this, right? They sort of allow Americans to come and grab these things, right? A few years ago, actually, I interviewed James Fox on my other podcast, Lone Star Play. And I've got a clip from that interview because in that interview, James Fox tells me about this incident. Americans came to get, actually, he doesn't even know what they came to get, right? Craft, bodies, both. And stay tuned to the end of the clip because James also talks about footage that remains of the Varginha case and him trying to get that footage. And I've got an update about that.
And then we find out that the Americans are involved.
Yeah, that bit about the Air Force plane, right? Coming down. Yeah, I think maybe the connection with the material, right? The first thing I hear when the foil-like material, I think Roswell.
Yeah, of course.
Right, the
yeah.
same sort of, right. I mean, who didn't think, you know, if you're watching that, that's what I thought. I thought, well, yeah, that makes total sense that they would come. Or does it make sense? I don't know. It's at this point, to be honest.
You know, every person I met with, both the civilian and the military, I wanted to know, like, where did this stuff go?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So I asked everybody that question, and everybody immediately responded the Americans were involved. But then when we got the radar guy, control tower, talks about the plane that came in on the 22nd of January. We know where that stuff was on the 22nd of January because we got the guy who drove it there, right? In Campinas. It's where all the intellectual heavyweights are in the country of Brazil. They have Campinas. It's like a university. It's like all the scientists. It's like the center. And they took it there, and I guess they studied it for a couple of days, and then a United States Air Force plane flew in and into Campinas on the 22nd, exactly when it was there, and then did what they're going to do. Some helicopters flew into the town of Varginha and then back to the United States.
And now there's no idea of like exactly what they took, right? Whether it be recovered crash material and being, or one or the other, or
we don't know.
Witnesses along with it, like disappearing them to, right?
We don't know.
Wow.
I'd like to know, and believe me, I'm gonna, there are other aspects.
So look, let's move into another part of the interview where James talks about other evidence he has, like video footage, okay, and him trying to get this video footage, because I've got some updates on that. So stay with me.
When did you watch the movie?
Last night.
Okay, so do you remember the end?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like what we wrote at the end? It's kind of significant. But
sure.
I was very carefully trying to figure out how I could state that aspect of this case without jeopardizing our initiative. In other words, there were cameras in 1996. There were video cameras in 1996. Therefore,
there's stuff there. Yeah.
Yes. So,
now, are you sure that there's stuff there, or you just like
I'm
think
positive
that there's stuff there?
No,
okay,
no,
so
I'm 100%
you're positive there's stuff. You just got to find it.
Well,
find it and get it.
Let's put it this way: even if you, even if you
convince the person to turn it over.
I just had a mango. Yeah, I just had a mango smoothie. Even if you find something, hypothetically, now what? You have to talk that person into giving it to you, right?
Sure. That's probably the tougher battle.
Think about that transaction. How does that go down?
And what better way to get it than to offer a couple $100,000? You see, James Fox has been working on this follow-up to Moment of Contact, and he's released this director's cut. You can see a couple tweets here of him talking about how it's going to be magnificent. You know, new interviews, new footage, all this stuff, right? And he's basically done with it. Now, back in May of 2023, he said this on a Brazilian live stream podcast. Check this out.
If the person who has possession of the videotaped evidence
Se a pessoa
wants
que tem...
to come,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
wants to come forward themselves presenting the provenance of said evidence, of the evidence, $200,000 US.
Like, I didn't understand as well. Like,
So the person who has the video,
Yes.
if they come forward, they present the videotape and
Oh,
they talk
okay.
about evidence.
okay.
Okay, not
okay.
anonymous.
All right.
Not anonymous.
All right. Ele falou...
200,000 US.
So I wonder if he got this footage. I mean, he's offering $200,000, right? And that was over 2 years ago. And now he's got the director's cut of Moment of Contact done. He's talked about this footage. Why release this next video without that footage? I just don't even see why you would do that. I think he may have this footage. I think he may have found the person and paid this $200,000. And this person may be in Moment of Contact. Now, I don't know that for sure, but I'm just saying this new director's cut. So let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll put links to everything. Thank you guys so much for watching, betters. We'll see you on the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Hey, my name's Mike. And in November of 2024, my wife and I were renting a house in Joshua Tree at the end of a year-long RV trip across the country. We stayed there for about 4 months before moving to Colorado. A few times that we were living there, I'd take a small dose of mushrooms, like a gram or so, and sit in a hammock in our backyard to meditate. The yard was a classic Joshua Tree backyard. A couple of Joshua trees, cactus, desert brush, and behind our fence was a few goats. One evening around 6:30, I had already been sitting out there for about an hour and a half, and I'm facing the goats, when suddenly, right where I was gazing, about 100 feet above the goats, a smooth black star appeared. It looked almost like something a kid would draw. Perfectly shaped, completely still. It hovered for about 4 or 5 seconds, and then silently glided off to my left. The weird part was my phone was right on my chest, but I was frozen, and by the time I could move, the craft was already pretty much too far to see. It made no sound, and it had no other features that I could make out that were distinguishing.